Members, officers, good afternoon. Welcome to the South Hams Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Thursday the 29th of September. Okay, we will start, as we always do, with item 1, apologies for absence. Mr White.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. We've got apologies for this afternoon's meeting from Councillor Rowe, for whom Councillor Reeve is substituting, Councillor Spencer, for whom Councillor Foss is substituting, and from Councillor Sweet, for whom Councillor Long is substituting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr White. Item 2, minutes, which I see have come out as a separate addendum on Modern Gov. Members will have seen. Could I have a proposer, please, that we take those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and a seconder.
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smurden. All those in favour, members, happy to take those?
That's carried for the minutes. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you very much. Item 3, urgent business. I have no urgent business. Item 4, division of the agenda. Again, no reason why the agenda should be divided today. Item 5, declarations of interest. In accordance with the Code of Conduct, members are invited to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, and non-registrable interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. Members? No? Okay, thank you very much. Item 6, public forum. No, any questions from the public, Mr White?
None received. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, flying through, in which case we'll go straight on to item 7, please. Built and Natural Environment Thematic Update. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Well, you've got the report in front of you. We're very much on track. The one item that is not quite on track are the build projects in Salcombe down on the creek. And that is because the builder seems to be distracted by other projects. Danfield is doing everything possible to keep things on track, but I'm afraid it has slipped. But we're still looking for a completion date of, I think, well, before the end of the year anyway. And we are now out to tender on the business units, specifically looking for businesses that are engaged in the marine trade so they can make use of the good position there down near the water. And we shall be interested to see what response we get to those. I'm happy to take questions, Chairman, on anything that anybody wants to ask me on this.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Okay, members, we'll go through then as we usually do. So, action BN 1.1, supporting the delivery of neighbourhood plans. Any questions from members on 1.1? Councillor Long.
Chairman, thank you. Just a question. I recognise that there have been sort of issues with reviews and delays with this. Is there anything that this council can do to speed up some of those issues that have arisen?
Councillor Long, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about the modifications to the Salcombe neighbourhood plan, aren't you? Right, well, if we'd had it our way, we'd have had it written without a condition in the first place, but we had to take the condition and we're trying to get that removed. This is principal residency for everybody else. I have been into this in great detail with Elliot Hale, our new neighbourhood plan officer. The excuse from the examiner is at the moment that he hasn't got any internet in his office, and I'm thinking, well, why can't he work from home like the rest of us? So I have sent that back to Elliot today, saying, well, I'm totally unsatisfied with the answer and hoping that he will complain to NPers about it, because for the rest of the committee, this modification, which is removing 3 words, I think, from the text, has been in train since the end of February 2021, and here we are in end of September 22, and this examiner has been sitting on this thing now for 15 months. So I am not amused, but nor is Elliot. But we're doing what we can, I'm afraid, Councillor Long, and can't do any better than that.
Councillor Pearce, on the back of that, should that be a key risk or issue then, that actually the overall rating can also be dependent on inspectors in that regard?
Well, I have to say that we did have some delays on the South Milton neighbourhood plan, but otherwise, as far as I'm aware, the inspectors, particularly Deborah McCann and John Slater, who we've been using quite a lot, have been pretty efficient. Now, we recognise workload, and you don't get immediate replies and things, but I think there's a difference between reasonable and unreasonable delay, and we haven't particularly been delayed on the other ones, but there are just one or two examiners who clearly either don't know what they're doing or aren't fit for purpose, because that we have experienced one or two delays. Now, the South Milton one was a lawyer who was particularly lawyerly in his outlook and not particularly plannerly in his outlook, and that took ages too. But this Sorkham thing is just completely off the scale, and we seem to have got an examiner we were allocated, nobody's ever heard of before, and I just hope we note his name and nobody ever uses him again.
Fair enough, thank you. Members, any other questions on 1.1?
Mr. Birch.
Councillor Birch.
Yes, the action is saying supporting the delivery of neighbourhood plans, and it reports on where there is action being taken or the process is underway. What it doesn't address is all those areas where there isn't a neighbourhood plan, and I think it would be helpful if the report in future identified the areas where there aren't a neighbourhood plan and what steps are being taken to encourage the local councils to proceed with a neighbourhood plan, because quite clearly they have benefits for the district. So I'd ask if that would be possible in future.
I'll reply to that. First of all, it's not up to the council to push people into doing a neighbourhood plan. We stand here ready to help anybody, any parish that comes forward wanting to do a neighbourhood plan. And indeed, you know, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Now, I know in a number of parishes there are resource implications and problems. It does require a lot of dedicated work by a few people to get a neighbourhood plan off the ground. And it's quite hard work for quite a long time. And some parishes just do not have the resource to do that. Now, other parishes, and I think Ringmore is probably the shining example of that, is a tiny parish that has managed to do a really quite nice, good neighbourhood plan, even though they're a tiny parish. So it can be done. But it really isn't us to push parishes into doing it, or even to go to a parish and say, we think you ought to do it, because that's not how it works. It has got to come from the bottom up. So we're here, we're ready, and we help and encourage anybody who wants to come forward. And I really do believe that, particularly Duncan Smith, who's now left us, but Elliot we've got at the moment, are there to extend exactly that help to any parish wishing to do a neighbourhood plan.
Councillor Birch.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting for one moment that we pressurise councils into undertaking the delivery of the neighbourhood plan. I'm picking up on the word that you just used a moment ago, which is actually to encourage. I think it should be part of this council's remit to encourage, not pressurise, but to encourage. I think it would be helpful in future when we have this report as to what steps are being taken to encourage.
I'll take that on board.
Councillor Foss.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. On that matter, I represent 6 parish councils, and they vary from being very laid back to very, very, very astute. I've got 3 that have got neighbourhood plans. The others haven't, but it's interesting. I try and bring the subject up as a district councillor at most times we go, and I think it's probably down to us as much as anybody to just say there is help at Southampton for that. But it's interesting recently that 2 others are now beginning to think that perhaps they should have had a neighbourhood plan. So hopefully we can, I think it's down to all of us actually as district councillors at those meetings to bring those sort of things forward.
Thank you, Councillor Foss. Okay, I think we'll move on then to 1.2, facilitate urban tree planting. Members, any questions on 1.2? Thank you, Councillor Long.
Just a question. It's obviously, you know, we're looking ahead sort of 6 months, but are there any other plans in line to go beyond the 22-23 planting season with looking for additional funding or additional other sites around the district for such planting?
It's my understanding that we have got another year of this plan, and that there are 19 sites in view for that planting, unless I've mixed my years up. But we've done a whole load this year, and we've got a whole load to do again next year, and we've got teams engaged, I know, to water these trees, go around watering them, which they needed to do obviously this summer to keep them alive.
Thank you. I have a question. There are bids moving on to cover the cost of tree planting at various other sites in the district. Councillor Pearce, do you know if there's officer engagement with local ward members on that?
I'm not aware of any, and yeah, I would welcome that actually. So that is possibly an action we could take.
It would be useful. I mean, at the expense of sounding parochial, one of the villages in my ward, and where Councillor Baldry and I live, is named. But I'm not aware of it. I welcome it, but it would be great to know where the district council has in mind in terms of physical locations. And I don't know if the parish council locally knows either. And there are other villages where that will be true for Councillor Holway in Ermington and maybe Councillor Hotwood in Wilwell. I don't know about the Iverbridge members, but it would certainly be worth thinking about liaising with ward members.
Yes, the only thing is I'm not sure whether next year's plan is now full up or not, because there seem to be quite a lot of destinations here. But I'll certainly ask them if they can get in touch with members if they have any, if they've got spare trees and need some more sites.
Any more questions, members, on 1.2? Councillor Baldry, have you got your hand up?
It's yellow, yes.
I have got my hand up. Thank you, Chairman. I'm much less tactful than you are. I think you are referring to the fact that the South Hams officer was seen wandering around the parish in which we live, and when challenged said he was looking for sites for trees.
Well, no, I think I was probably making the broader, rather more tactful point, Councillor Baldry, that we should be working with officers to highlight sites together. But I thank you for your honesty, as always. I think in the absence of any further questions on this one, I think we'll move on, members, to item 1.3, support schemes that contribute to enhancing the marine environment, including water quality. Questions on this area? This, as you know, the leader's already alluded, is slightly off track for the reasons that she's given. Are there any other questions you have on this one? No? Okay, that's fair enough. That's been dealt with. 1.4, map land uses to support good decision making. And this refers to the first iteration of the Devon Nature Recovery Map. Do we have any questions on 1.4? No? Okay, great. 1.5 is the commission work leading to delivery of priority cycle routes and a 20-year vision for the cycle network in the South Hams. Any questions on this, particularly with the looking ahead to 6 months or anything around that?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Certainly gone as well.
Oh, is it working? Just interested to know. I mean, I know that as you're a member of the National Park as well. National Park has looked quite heavily at the area around the A38, around the south of the moor, linking it up. A certain amount of that is within the National Park, but some of it is actually outside. Didn't know if there'd been any joined up thinking going on.
What I can tell you, Councillor Smurden, is that we are in the act of commissioning this exploratory work. And what that will do is weigh up the possibilities of each cycle route and point out or rank them, if you like, in the most feasible and the most deliverable routes. None of these are going to be easy. The general thing is lack of cash to do it, because they're actually quite expensive to deliver. And once we've got that report, it'll be much clearer. But I think that's a good point you highlight about joining up with anything that's going on in the national park. I'll point that out to Chris Brook and make sure that he takes note of that when commissioning. So,
Okay, thank you.
On the back of that, I know certainly in Councillor Holway's ward, where I have the county responsibility, we have a lot of liaising with the local sustrans members and the PL21 campaign up there, and that's covered off, is it, in this?
It will be. That's the cycle route into Plymouth, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Councillor Jackson.
I just wanted to know what the time frame was from submitting the for the investment, and when do you think it will be decided, approximately?
Well, the investment for cycle routes, I'm afraid, isn't there.
No.
The investment is this prioritising, commissioning a study which will tell us which are the best routes to aim for, if you like.
I understand that. Just how long do you think it will take to make the decision?
I don't.
My question.
Well, decision. I don't think it'll be that long. We'll be talking sort of probably 3 or 4 months to get the report back. Yeah, it'll be a matter of a few months, but actually doing anything after that is likely to take years, I'm afraid. But we've got Gemma online. Maybe she can tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, I just wondered if these questions. Sorry, I've got feedback, so sorry if it's distorted. Yeah, so the timing is that we're going to get the tender out to consultants really soon, ahead of the funding. It's because this is all going to be funded through the Shared Prosperity Fund. Hopefully have the consultants on board by January, and then it will probably take 6 to 12 months to produce the document. It's called an LC WIP. It's a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Incredibly in-depth report, which we'll get as Councillor Pearce has outlined. We'll have the strategic cycle routes for each of the main towns and the smaller towns as well. So sort of midway through next year, I would say, we would have some pretty good evidence that we can then share.
Thanks,
I hope that helps.
Thanks, Gemma. Yeah.
Gemma, can you add in that point about joining up with the national park and having a look at that when it's done, please?
Yeah, I mean, we are already talking quite a lot with the national park, and in fact some of the towns will be towns in so South Brent and Princetown are going to be part of our LC WIP, so it will extend outside of the JLP area, because so we'll be very much working with Dartmoor, because they'll be a key partner in the preparation of this document.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks, Gemma. Councillor Long.
Just a question from the point of view of how the evidence or the sort of wish list for cycle routes can be fed in so that nothing is lost, because I know there was some interest of linking the existing Salcombe and Marlborough cycle route from Marlborough to Kingsbridge, and there was sort of a number of West Alvington parish councillors who were sort of involved in sort of looking initially at that. Can that be captured and fed into the plan in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. Public consultation is going to be absolutely critical in the preparation of it. So essentially, the transport consultants will pull masses of macro data, traffic flow, statistics on cyclists, and then we'll go out to the community and get that understanding from them of where are their aspirational cycle routes and an understanding of where people are cycling. So that will be talking to the parishes and the towns, and hopefully also an extensive public consultation. We will obviously have to be then mindful, because I'm sure lots of communities will have aspirations of routes that the modelling will show a very small number of cyclists will actually use, and that will be the more politically sensitive element of the project, because obviously we'll pull all this data in, but in terms of which cycle routes we can identify, and we can also identify funding that could go towards them, will be, as Councillor Pearce has said, they are extremely expensive. And that will have to be the later stages of it. But at first, we'll be pulling all that information in, so at least we have it, and the community will have an understanding of the community and where are their aspirational routes.
That's great, thank you. Okay, Councillor Chang.
Yeah, just if the council's not successful at getting the Shared Prosperity Fund, that process you outlined, Gemma, will that still take place?
I hesitate here because my role in this also gets funded through the Shared Prosperity Fund. So I think that's a question back to members whether they wish to find funding to continue this work in active travel, that's probably out of my hands to answer that one.
That's probably a director level question.
Yeah.
What would you like?
Well, it's my understanding we've got the Shared Prosperity Fund money for 2 years, of which a chunk has been put aside so that Gemma can do her work, and then there are all the other priorities within that as well.
I think Mr. Shears wants to come in.
Chris has got the details on this, haven't you, Chris?
So we submitted our investment plans on the 1st of August, and we're expecting the outcome of those investment plans to find out if we're successful at some point next month. So in October is what we've been told. So we're hopeful, but we cannot be certain at this stage that the funding is there. But just to shed a bit of light on sort of the toing and froing that's gone on with the Levelling Up department since we submitted those plans, it's literally they've been coming back to us saying, can you move the figure that you put in this spreadsheet onto this box instead, kind of discussion, rather than what the heck have you submitted and why are you doing that sort of discussion. So we're quietly hopeful that that the investment plan, we're confident it was a strong investment plan we submitted, but it's going to be next month that we get the outcome.
But I suppose, Councillor Chan, your question is, would it still happen even without the funding, yes?
Yeah, so it says in the report that if the SPF monies are not secured, then we rely on DCC. So this tender process that we're going out for, if we're not successful, then that would be irrelevant. That wouldn't take place.
And on that, so Devon County are looking at undertaking their own LC whip, which would be at a sort of a higher level approach to developing this local cycle and walking infrastructure plan. So there would still be something happening, but it would be likely to be taking place at a higher level with a lower level of engagement with local communities, etc., etc.
Councillor Baldry.
If I may interfere, Chairman, slightly, I've been in correspondence with Gemma anyway, and for your benefit, and Councillor Chow and anyone else, I know that Gemma is having conversation with Sustrans and others about the Brixton Yampton route. Just nod, Gemma, if you agree.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Molyneux.
So just picking up on Councillor Chown's point, I think ultimately, if there isn't funding, and I don't believe DCC have a huge amount of funding from what I've been made aware of, it would be for the council to decide in terms of priorities whether it wished to carry on with investing in that area. So it will be a decision around the corporate strategy and what's funded through the corporate strategy, as far as I'm concerned.
And if I can just add, that's why this report will be so important, because it will actually evaluate not only the order of priority, but the actual what's, how worth doing each one is.
Okay, are we broadly content with 1.5 then? Okay, we'll move on to 1.6, work to facilitate the delivery of broadband connectivity where it's needed, supporting digital infrastructure for the future. Any questions on this one? Councillor Bird.
Thank you. I've no knowledge of what's happening elsewhere, but it's a bit like the Wild West in Totnes when it comes to the activities of Airband and Wildernet. As soon as we get over one problem with Airband putting up poles here, there and everywhere, along comes Wildernet and start digging trenches here, there and everywhere. And I just get the impression that they're very much a law unto themselves. And therefore, and what's more, what also is incredibly annoying is that they go around, both of them, go around painting pavements as to where they're going to put this, that and the other. And if you walk around Totnes at the moment, it's as though a graffiti artist has been let loose on all the pavements. And it's pretty awful in conservation areas. So looking at where, at the bottom where it says, looking ahead to the next 6 months, and it says continuing to engage with suppliers and understand rollout priorities. I wonder, rather than continue, actually, can we start doing that? Because it seems to me that Gemma is not being informed by these suppliers as to what they're doing. and the first notice she gets of any activity is when there is a ward member had received disgruntled messages from his or her constituents. So I wonder if we'd be helpful if Gemma could give her view on this. I mean, if it's happening elsewhere, then that's awful. But it is a particular problem in Totnes, and I think there somehow needs to be a closer monitoring as to what they're doing and when they're doing it.
Before we come to Gemma, Councillor Birch, I'm going to let Councillor Smurden speak because he, in part, will answer your question.
Yeah, well, I can answer it in as much as your question was: is it happening in other parts of the district? And the answer to that is yes. I was at our Rattery Parish Council meeting last night. We've got a member of the parish council who is very well informed on this and has been. His brief is to help businesses within the parish and to ensure that businesses have the best broadband that we can get them effectively. Very frustrating, very frustrating. I've not actually heard of Wilder Net. I'm tempted to slightly corrupt that into Wild West because it just seems to. As I say, I've not heard of them, but definitely. There is one of those companies there whose performance has fallen off woefully, and it is almost impossible to get any information out of them. They've been looking to extending the fibre broadband network within our parish, and that is proving almost impossible because they say they're going to do one thing, then nothing happens, and then suddenly they appear, and it's just not good. So I'd be interested to hear what Gemma has to say. I don't want to rock the boat, etc. But and I've got a form on this, but this one's green at the bottom. I mean, it sure as heck isn't green in our area.
Well, can I just come in here? Because this is not our contract. And actually, it's nothing to do with the district council. But what we're doing is trying to facilitate and support residents with the rollout of this service. And I think Gemma's been doing that extremely well, because otherwise the whole thing would have been a complete mystery to local people as to how it was working. And whilst I accept everything you're saying, because I think exactly the same thing, I think Gemma's had a particularly tough job here because she's been dealing with a company that doesn't tell you what it's doing, that won't disclose addresses, that all the rest of it. But as I understand it, the main contract is through the county council and even sort of higher up the tree than that. So Gemma may be able to explain to you, but just note that our work is to facilitate and support and no more than that, because we do not have a role bigger than that. Gemma.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pearce. It's hard to know where to begin with this because it is quite complex, the public contracts. So where to begin? So Connecting Devon and Somerset, who are essentially an arm of Devon County, manage the contract, and they're given the money from central government. And the issue we have in Totnes, and we will have in Salcombe and Dartmouth, where the rollout of this public contract is going next, is that Connecting Devon and Somerset have a contract with Airband, who no doubt you've all heard of, and Airband have to deliver that. And they've got some addresses that they have to under contract deliver to, and they've got some addresses that they are trying to pick up new customers on a commercial basis. And then on top of that, we have other commercial companies, Wildernet being one of them, who aren't under any public contract. So they're under no obligation to share information with us. And in fact, it is not in their interest to share any information because it is such a fast-paced industry, the fibre rollout, that as soon as one company knows that another has delivered to address, they'll jump around and get to the next street. It's like whoever gets there first to the post on delivery. And I'm hesitant to say this, but it is going to happen. We're going to have overbuild, as it's known, happening in all the main towns. So Airband are under contract to go to Dartmouth and Salcombe next. Openreach are soon to start building in Dartmouth and Salcombe if they haven't already. And then I suspect Wildernet, who are actually a Cornish company, a fast-growing Cornish company. I suspect they'll be going to these towns as well, because that's where all the customers are. And government have freed up the system from a planning point of view. It is in their it is so rigged to enable them to roll out without having to go through even permitted development. They have the fast track to just put up the poles, hang their wires, and get in as quickly as possible, because that's the government mandate. They want the whole country to have access to fibre as soon as possible, and that's a national drive. So what I'm doing is I'm speaking to Connecting Devon and Somerset a lot in terms of understanding this Airband contract. As Steve will know, we've been banging our heads against CDS for as long as I've been in post, trying to get them to share their data with us, which they haven't done at this point in time, despite promises that they will. We continue to in fact, emails have been flying today, even on the lines of data sharing. So we're still working on that, because we need a better collaborative working relationship with Connecting Devon and Somerset. But I am speaking to Wildernet, and Wildernet actually are being much more proactive in terms of community engagement than I have seen with Airband. So I'll be continuing to engage with them. But while they might share information with me, often that information they share with me, I'm not actually able to share with to share more widely, because it's commercially sensitive. Yeah, I don't know if it's a lot to try and cover in a nutshell, but hopefully that gives the gist of it.
No, that's Gemma. That's fine, and I want to come back to you on overbuild in a minute. But I know Mr. Molyneux wants to come in. I know Councillor Foss wants to come in, and then I think there's other hands as well. So, Mr. Molyneux.
Firstly, I'll start off with an apology to Gemma. It's just occurred to me that one of the reasons we put Gemma's role in place was to try and simplify things for residents. And all we've actually done is put somebody else in who's dealing with the same confusion that all the residents have been dealing with. But I think Gemma has done a good job at trying to help inform residents and communities of what's going on. I think the irony of all of this is that the whole idea of the Connecting Devon and Somerset programme was to increase connectivity to the bits where commercial providers wouldn't go. And what we're actually seeing is commercial providers going en masse to the areas where they think there is a buck to be made, and the residents who have poor connectivity will still have poor connectivity. And of course, Connecting Devon and Somerset, there's plenty of criticisms that are justified with Connecting Devon and Somerset, but they're trying to address those people, which of course commercially are not attractive to the providers, because it costs them a huge amount of money to put that infrastructure in place. You know, Airband are the replacement company from GigaClear, who were originally awarded the contract, who went bust, and I believe before my time there was somebody before GigaClear. So doing the right thing in the areas where we need it in the South Hams is the most expensive and the most difficult, and the providers don't really want to do it. And it's really, really a real challenge. But I will stop there, Chairman.
I think the frustration is that a lot of that money that it's costing them in overbuild, we would rather they spent on those areas. And in fact, the frustration that you heard from Councillor Smurden and probably Councillor Birch as well is because a lot of the time we get from residents, I can't believe it, 3 weeks ago Openreach were digging the road up, and now, would you believe it, Airband are here doing exactly the same thing, and there is this perception that it's all public money and what a waste it is. I think that's most of the frustration around the table. I'm going to come to Councillor Foss, and I will come to you, Councillor Birch, but Councillor Foss.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to have to watch my language a bit, but what a bugger's mess we've got. It's absolute...
You didn't do a very good job of watching your language at all there, Councillor Foss. So let's just say what a mess we've got.
It is, well, I'm sorry, it is worse than that, because here we are in 2022 and we're still struggling to get decent broadband. I've been the butt end of it where we live, right? We live at Start Point, and people say, you know, at the farm. And in the end, the only way we could get decent broadband was we went the route through, that was through Devon County Council, who had a grant to put up an aerial to take in broadband through the EE signal. And that works very well. And I think there's a lot of other people in the South Hams who do well to go that route, because I'm never going to get fibre out there, never in a month of Monday. And I find it absolutely astonishing that we're here in 2020, and this is nothing to do with you, Gemma, it's far higher than you, that somebody hadn't said, look, sorted these firms out and said, look, one lot works one place and another lot the other. To be working side by side is absolutely unbelievable. And after all, it is our money at the end of the day they're spending. And I mean, who do you go to sort it out? It's absolutely appalling. There's no other word for it.
Councillor Birch.
Yes, thank you, Gemma, for the information. The problem that I think we all have or will have is that the residents seem to think that it's all down to us, and it's not. And I've found that I've spent a lot of time defending the council by saying this is that we have little or no input as to what is happening. And that, in fact, at the top of the tree, as far as we're concerned, is Devon County Council through Connecting Devon and Somerset. So I seek to refer the complainants to the County Councillor. Now, if you look at what's in front of us, Action BN16, that gives the impression that we do have some sway as to what is happening. I know it says work to facilitate, but looking at this policy, it would give residents the impression that we do have some responsibility for this. So what I would like to suggest is that the wording of this action is that it be looked at and amended so that we're really not held responsible for this, but in a certain extent doing the best that we can to scrutinise the process or to insist in its engagement rather than accepting any delivery. Any responsibility for delivery. So I think this is the Action BN 1.6 needs looking at and amending. So I'd like to suggest that be given consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Pearce, are you happy to consider that?
I'm happy to take that back, Councillor Birch, because I think it does say we facilitate and support, but I take your point that I think we're even further away from it possibly than that, because they are just doing what they like. And for anybody who's interested, it looks like there's a convention of BT Openreach vans in Salcombe at the moment, because you can't get down the streets for them. So I think they've arrived in Salcombe, Gemma, and it's BT Openreach.
Members, would this be an appropriate subject, Connecting Devon and Somerset, to consider in terms of our forward plan work, in terms of calling to this committee? Because, well, no, I'm thinking that, we are a partner with the County Council. Connecting Devon and Somerset, it says clearly on this report, have still not shared any information that was promised.
Councillor Thomas, I think you do far better to go to the County Council and ask them to do that, because...
with respect, Leader, I've done that. I have contacted the portfatio holder, the Cabinet member at County on more than one occasion, and I have been told, as you would expect, that all is well.
Well, I'd rather suspected you might get that reply, but that's what we get all the time, because it's our County Councillor.
I know exactly who it is, Councillor Pearce, but that's why I go back to... Mr Shears, go on.
I was just going to say that this... It's little consolation, but this isn't a unique issue to our area, and every other local authority in Devon finds exactly the same issues and problems. So if you were looking at doing something, it may be worth reaching out to other areas and seeing if you could do something collectively.
Could I suggest it is something we could bring up at either the Team Devon meetings or at Devon Districts? Now, we've got Devon Districts coming up next week, and I've actually had a call today for extra agenda items, so I'd be happy to ask for this to be put on the agenda so that we can get the experiences of other district councils, and then maybe we can all join forces and go to the County Council together. How would that be?
I think that would be very useful, Councillor Pearce. Are we happy with that, members? Yep. Okay, grand, thank you. That would be very useful indeed. And thanks, Gemma, thanks for your time. Okay, so we will move on to item 1.7, which is Commission Conservation Area Appraisals and Plans. This is the last bullet point on this thematic update. Members, do you have any questions on Commission Conservation Area Appraisals and Plans. Councillor Long.
Not a question, Chairman, but to say that I'm really pleased to see the new Conservation Officer, Karen Pritchard, sort of in post and working. I think this has been essential to move conservation area appraisals and, you know, improvements ahead. So I'm really pleased, and she's got a lot of work to do.
She has.
Anyone else, members? Okay, right, thank you very much. Well, the recommendation then, as per the screen, is that we note the progress against the Better Lives for All thematic delivery plan. Councillor Birch.
Yes, I think we need to do more than just note. I think we would needs to be an addition to that the councillor Pearce or the takes on board the comments that were made during the meeting and which she made a note of. In other words, yeah. So I think that needs to be included within the recommendation. In other words, it wasn't just noted and nothing was said.
Councillor Beers, I know you said you are happy to take into account, and that's now going on the screen. So, members, are we happy to note and request the leader takes into account as per what's now on the screen? Everyone happy with that?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's clearly noted and requested. Thank you,
Chair.
Right, okay. Right, we will, thank you very much, Councillor Pearce. Thank you, officers, for that. We will go on to agenda item 8. I'm coming to you, Mr. Molyneux. I'm just going to say that it's the performance management report, but I'm coming straight to you, Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I really want to apologise here. The report that you've got in front of you is not a report that we think has got the sufficient amount of detail, sufficient amount of context, and effectively missed our quality control. It was produced at a time when we were in of the Queen's passing, and we were distracted by other events, and we completely missed this one. And it doesn't reflect, I don't think, the performance. It doesn't give any context for members to discuss and debate it. And I've discussed with the leader and the chief executive and the chairman of the committee and the lead member that we effectively quash talking about this at this meeting and bring back a much more detailed report with a lot more information in to the next committee. So my apologies, members.
Members, I'm going to assume that you're happy with that, because it would seem, it would seem silly to talk about something that's only in half form. So what we'll do is we'll pick it up in the work programme at item 10 in terms of rescheduling it then. Is everyone happy with that, Councillor Smurden?
Does the work schedule for the next meeting is fairly heavy? Can we fit it in?
We'll have a look at it in 10, because right. I know we've got some availability for the relevant executive member as well. So we'll look at it under 10.
Okay.
Okay, everyone happy?
Yep.
Okay, grand. Right. Okay, agenda item 9 is task and finish group updates. Right, okay. On electric vehicle charging, members of the electric vehicle charging task and finish group have a meeting a week today in the morning on Teams. I know some of us attended yesterday a webinar, which I don't know if you want to say anything, Councillor Long, I thought was very, very, very useful.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it was, because it raised sort of points from other councils coming in, the difficulties they've had, and some initiatives that I wasn't aware of. So I think that webinar, I'm always doubtful about the sort of, value of attending things like that, but that one certainly leading into the task and finish group, I think was very valuable and giving some really good pointers as to what we should be doing.
Absolutely, and just very briefly, members, to give you an idea, I mean, one of the things that we learned about yesterday, particularly relevant for this district, was the GUL E trial, GUL-E trial, where the local resident is able to run a cable across the pavement through a gully, so that people who don't have off-street parking can still run electric charging from their houses across the pavement. So they're really getting, this is a trial they're running at the moment in I didn't write down, in Oxfordshire, a trial they're running in Oxfordshire, in rural Oxfordshire. The point being that they are thinking out of the box now as to how, in the more rural areas, we can accommodate electric vehicles where there isn't an obvious off-site charge. So I'm hopeful that the task and finish group that will meet next Thursday will be able to assist as the executive have requested. I don't think we need to add anything else to that, members, because that's where we are at this stage. So I think we will then go on then, with your permission, members, to item 10, which is the committee work programme latest version. Mr. Mullin, do you want to talk us through it?
Thank you, Chairman. So on the 3rd of November, we currently have contact centre review. I would propose, Chairman, that we have a report going to the executive on the 1st of November. So I would propose, and actually Councillor Hotwood is not available anyway, so I would suggest that goes back to the 8th of December, with your permission. I then think we could probably do, as Councillor Hotwood delegated the report on performance management to Councillor Pearce, we could probably slot that one in as a replacement with a much more detailed report.
In November?
In November.
Well, I suppose the only thing I would say in fairness to Councillor Pearce is that she has no other reason to come to that meeting at this stage. It would be...
I don't mind. I don't
sure.
mind, because no, I was happy to do it for her today. She's rounding up Dartmoor pen.
Well, that's kind. Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Okay, so then we would do fine. We did performance management with Councillor Pearce leading on that, and Councillor Hotwood's absence in November. Yeah. Contact centre review with Councillor Hotwood would then go into December. Is that going to work with what's already in there?
I think it will. The one that is still TBC, and we only had their apologies literally just before we were publishing the agenda, was the Devon Building Control Partnership. Yeah. And whilst we immediately went back and asked if they could confirm to the next meeting, we haven't had a response yet. Right, so we will continue to try.
Well, I'm almost tempted to suggest, looking at this, members, to say we don't want them. Councillor Birch.
Can I suggest you have a word with the chair of Devon Building Control, who is Councillor Baston, and I'm sure he will give you a positive response.
Well, I was actually going to suggest that looking at what's on the report agenda, unless there's any reason why not, it would almost make sense now to have them in January, because we're looking at quite. I'm acutely aware that we're going to have a short finish today, but if we add them into November or December, you're going to have quite a long afternoon, members, and there's a lot of disgruntlement when that happens. Did you want to speak, Councillor Taylor?
Yes, please. Yes, I'm a bit concerned about the pushing back the annual report from Fusion, because they were meant to come to this November meeting, and if you're going to take it till January, we're going to be left in the dark.
No, not Fusion. Not Fusion.
No, not Fusion.
We're not talking about Fusion. We're talking about the Building Control Partnership.
Building Control Partnership.
I see. But
so you'd still have Fusion will still be. The quarterly update will be in December with Councillor Hawkins and John Parkinson.
Yeah, but not in November.
Yes,
there's still the biannual report in November. But then, if you remember, Councillor Hawkins and Mr Parkinson turn up more often than Fusion, because we agreed here that we would have quarterly updates, written submission. So you get people coming from Fusion, and very often we then also get internal reports to this committee.
Yeah, so I believe we need to be kept update with what's going on in Fusion.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the other one to add in then at this stage, or to consider adding in at this stage, I have to say, is we've had a formal request from Councillor Birch. So, Councillor Birch, do you want to speak to your formal request?
So, if I could refer to the document that is sent out with the papers, which was the request I sent to the Chief Executive, and it's a request pursuant to the relevant parts of the Constitution that I've set out in the request. The important parts of this document are in fact the two paragraphs under the heading of the item, and if I could just regurgitate those two paragraphs, because they are important, and that is that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee examine and receive evidence on the procedures followed by the council in respect to the Ivy Bridge regeneration projects from its inception to the decision taken to council. Now, the key words within that paragraph are the examine and receive evidence, and they are effectively lifted from the powers given to this committee. Then following that through to the next paragraph, it says, following such examination and evidence gathering, the committee submits recommendations to the executive on policies and their implementation to be adopted in respect of similar projects to avoid any unnecessary costs and non-productive officer time. Now, on page 102 of the council's constitution, it deals with, this is the start of the council's constitution relating to the powers and the procedure of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And it states within that section, and it says, and I quote, evidence sessions are a key way in which the Overview and Scrutiny Committee may inform its work. They may happen at formal committee or in less formal task and finish groups. Now, the Constitution on pages 105 and 106 detail the procedure to be followed in gathering such evidence and carrying out such examination. And the procedure, which is set out within the Constitution, provides for the executive members and senior officers to appear before an overview and scrutiny meeting to provide evidence as well as answer questions. And the important part of the procedure is that such evidence is an important part of the scrutiny process leading to a possible recommendation to the executive and full council. Now, on the note again that the note I sent to the chief executive, the final paragraph reads, the costs of in the region of £500,000 arising from the Ivy Bridge project deserve scrutiny, and in particular the procedures followed by the council that gave rise to such expenditure. So it's the important part of this is the scrutiny in respect of the procedures. Now, this request is a request to include within the committee's work programme. Now, in view of the Audit Committee's resolution made at its meeting on the 8th of September, requesting an appraisal report, I would ask at this stage, or I would request at this stage, that my request be deferred pending consideration of the appraisal report by the audit. In other words, it will not be put into the work programme, that my request be deferred pending consideration by the audit committee of the appraisal report. So I'd like to put that request to the committee.
Members. So I think what Councillor Birch is saying that he doesn't want to make a decision. He doesn't want us to make a decision today.
For it to be deferred.
He'd like the decision to be deferred. Now I'm looking at you, Councillor Austin, as Chairman of Audit, because it's coming to you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the same thing. So if Councillor Birch had not spoken, I was going to say exactly the same thing. I was going to say we've got an audit committee on the 20th of October where this particular subject is coming before that audit committee. And I think the best thing to do would be to undertake that audit committee first and then go from there as to what we're going to do in it.
Members, with your permission, I'm going to take Councillor Austin and Birch's agreement as sign that that is how we should proceed. Yeah. Not least because I'm not aware it's ever happened at this committee before. Can I? Of course you can, Mr. Melanie.
Can I just say I welcome that pragmatism, members. Obviously, from an officer perspective, it's for you as members to choose, but we were in danger here of officers having to do twice the amount of work, and that is would have been my real concern here. And I just welcome the pragmatism on that point. Thank you.
I think from the chair, I would probably say that had it not been going to audit, I would certainly have been supporting it coming to this committee, because we are called the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and it would be unfortunate if we weren't performing that function. But certainly this seems to be the best outcome for now, and we'll see where we go from here.
Indeed.
And on that basis, I think that's probably it for today. We're happy, members, going back to the committee work on the previous slides. We're happy with what we're doing there, with the performance management in November, the contact centre review in December when Councillor Hopwood is with us, and then looking at the building control partnership in January, assuming they can make it. Yes? Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Okay. On that basis, unless Mr. White or Mr. Mullen, you tell me otherwise, I'm going to declare the meeting closed at 2:55. Thank you very much.